Most people think they're living their life, but they're not. They're repeating it. The same routines, the same thoughts, the same reactions, the same emotional patterns. Wake up, work, scroll, eat, sleep, repeat. And somewhere along the way, they forget to question anything. They forget to question why they feel stuck. They forget to question why nothing changes. They forget to question why their dreams keep fading into the background. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're unmotivated. It's because they're living on autopilot, a psychological state where your mind stops choosing and starts repeating. Autopilot feels comfortable, but it is the enemy of growth, clarity, success, and fulfillment. This audiobook will show you how your brain slips into autopilot, how your habits silently take control of your life, how emotional numbness becomes your default state, and how to wake up your mind before more years pass you by. Because your life doesn't change when the world changes. Your life changes when you finally wake up. And today, you begin that awakening. Let's start. Chapter 1. The Autopilot Brain. How your mind runs without you. Most people don't realize this, but they are not actually living their lives. They are running programs, invisible scripts, patterns repeated so many times that the brain has automated them without asking for permission. This is the autopilot state, a mode your mind slips into to conserve energy, avoid discomfort, and keep you operating inside the boundaries of familiarity. Autopilot is not the enemy. It is a survival mechanism designed to protect you. But survival mode becomes a problem when life becomes nothing but survival. When your days blur into routines, your actions become reflexes, and your identity becomes a repetition of yesterday. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Your life can run without your engagement. Your mind can live without your awareness. Your entire existence can happen automatically, and that is where most people get stuck. Autopilot is the brain's energy-saving mode. The brain is always looking for ways to conserve energy. Thinking is expensive. Decision-making is exhausting. Consciousness requires effort. So your brain automates everything it can. The way you wake up, the way you walk, the way you react emotionally, the way you speak to yourself, the way you procrastinate, the way you avoid uncomfortable conversations, the way you scroll when you're stressed, the way you numb when you're overwhelmed. These behaviors feel like choices, but most of them are automatic responses. Your brain says, "We've done it this way before. It feels familiar. It must be safe." So it repeats the pattern over and over until the pattern becomes you. Automation quietly becomes your identity. You didn't start out as a bundle of habits. You became one. After repeating a behavior long enough, your brain builds a neural shortcut, a quicker, simpler path that requires less thought. That shortcut becomes part of your identity. Wake up tired, scroll. Feel stressed, avoid. Feel lost, freeze. Feel alone, numb. Feel fear, retreat. Feel discomfort, distract. You begin to think, this is just who I am. But it isn't. It's who your autopilot has trained you to be. Identity is not destiny. Identity is repetition. And what you repeat unconsciously, you eventually believe consciously. The danger begins when automation replaces intention. Autopilot is helpful when you use it intentionally, like brushing your teeth or driving a familiar route. But when autopilot takes over emotional habits, mental habits, and life direction, you stop living and start existing. Days become recycled. Dreams become distant. Purpose becomes blurry. Life becomes predictable, but not fulfilling. You stop asking, what do I want? What matters to me? What am I avoiding? What am I becoming? Autopilot numbs your awareness. And without awareness, you lose control of your inner life. You don't drift into your highest self. You drift into the easiest version of yourself. And the easiest version is rarely the one you're proud of. Autopilot happens when presence disappears. The human mind can either be awake or asleep. Not physically, mentally. A mentally awake person notices their thoughts, feels their emotions, questions their patterns, and chooses their actions. A mentally asleep person reacts, repeats, escapes, distracts, survives. The difference between these two states is not intelligence. It is awareness. Awareness is rare because awareness is uncomfortable. To be aware, you must face the emotions you numb, the habits you hide behind, the dreams you've delayed, the potential you've ignored, the fears you haven't named. Autopilot protects you from this discomfort by keeping you unconscious. It doesn't want you to think deeply. Thinking deeply might trigger change. So it keeps you busy, distracted, occupied, externally engaged, but internally asleep. Awareness is the first step back to control. There is a moment in every transformation where a person wakes up, not suddenly, subtly. A discomfort rises. A voice whispers, "This can't be it." A truth surfaces. "I'm repeating the same day again." A realization appears. "I am not choosing my life. My patterns are choosing it for me." This is the beginning of awakening. Awareness is not dramatic. It is quiet. It begins with noticing. Noticing that your reactions are automatic. Noticing that your habits override your intentions. Noticing that you go through days without conscious thought. Noticing that your life is running you instead of the other way around. Awareness interrupts automation. It creates a moment of choice. And in that moment, your power returns. Because once you see a pattern, you can question it. Once you question it, you can interrupt it. Once you interrupt it, you can replace it. And once you replace it, you can rebuild your entire identity. Awareness is the ignition point of transformation. It awakens the part of you that remembers you are not meant to repeat life. You are meant to create it. And the moment you decide to live consciously, autopilot loses its grip. This is where control returns. This is where your life shifts. This is where you begin to rise. Chapter 2. The habit loop that keeps you stuck. Most people think their life is shaped by motivation, discipline, and willpower. But in reality, your life is shaped by habits. Small, repeated behaviors that run automatically beneath awareness, controlling far more of your choices than you realize. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And the frustrating part is this. Even the habits you dislike, even the habits that sabotage you, even the habits that keep you stuck, survive because they are familiar, not because they are helpful. This chapter exposes the invisible loop running your life. The cue, the routine, the reward, and how to break it before it becomes your destiny. Habits run your life more than motivation does. Motivation is loud, but temporary. Habits are silent, but permanent. Motivation fades when you're tired, stressed, discouraged, or overwhelmed. Habits don't care how you feel. They activate automatically. You wake up and reach for your phone without thinking. You feel stressed and grab a snack without noticing. You feel lonely and scroll social media unconsciously. You face discomfort and procrastinate on instinct. You get anxious and retreat before you can question the feeling. These don't feel like decisions. They feel like reflexes. Because they are. Your brain runs these patterns beneath awareness, allowing your life to unfold on autopilot, even when it's not the life you want. Even harmful habits survive because they are familiar. The mind doesn't support habits because they're good for you. It supports them because they are predictable. Your brain prioritizes certainty over improvement. A harmful habit you understand feels safer than a healthy habit you don't. So your brain chooses old fears over new courage, old routines over new effort, old coping mechanisms over new growth, old escapes over new discipline. Autopilot loves familiarity. It protects predictability, even if predictability is destroying your potential. Cue, routine, reward controls 90% of your behavior. Every habit follows a simple loop. 1. The cue. Something triggers the behavior. Stress, boredom, loneliness, a notification, a time of day, a memory, a place, a feeling. 2. The routine. The automatic behavior follows. Scrolling, eating, avoiding, overthinking, complaining, numbing, escaping. 3. The reward. The brain receives relief or stimulation. Dopamine, comfort, distraction, emotional release, temporary escape. This loop is powerful because it operates subconsciously. You don't have to think. Your brain simply reacts. You feel stressed, cue. You reach for your coping mechanism, routine. You feel temporary relief, reward. The brain says, "This worked. Let's do it again next time." This is how patterns become automatic. This is how habits take control, not through intention, through repetition. Breaking the loop requires altering the cue or the reward. You cannot break a habit through trying harder. That's why willpower fails. To break a habit, you must disrupt the loop. Option 1. Change the cue. If the trigger disappears, the routine weakens. Example, if you always scroll in bed, charging your phone across the room breaks the cue. If you eat junk food when bored, changing your environment disrupts the trigger. If you procrastinate at your desk, working from a new location creates a new context. Cues are environmental more than emotional. Your surroundings program your behavior more than you think. Option 2. Change the reward. If the routine no longer produces the reward, the brain stops reinforcing it. Example, if mindless scrolling stops giving dopamine, your brain will lose interest in the habit. If procrastination starts creating discomfort rather than relief, the habit weakens. If emotional eating is replaced with another soothing ritual, the loop rewrites itself. To break a habit, you must either remove the trigger or replace the reward. Changing the routine alone does not work. The brain needs a new payoff. Conscious habit design replaces unconscious repetition. Here is the freeing truth. You don't need to eliminate your habits. You need to design them. Every habit, good or bad, follows the same psychological structure. And once you understand the loop, you can rebuild your life from the inside out. Step 1. Identify your cues. What makes you scroll? What makes you avoid? What makes you shut down? What makes you overthink? Step 2. Replace your routines. Swap one behavior for another. Make the new routine easy, not heroic. Step 3. Engineer your rewards. Reward yourself for the behavior you want to reinforce. Make the brain associate growth with satisfaction. This is conscious habit design. This is how you take back control from autopilot. Your habits become your identity. Every time you repeat a habit, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. If you consistently avoid discomfort, you become someone who collapses under pressure. If you consistently show up for yourself, you become someone who trusts their own strength. Identity emerges from behavior. Behavior emerges from habits. Habits emerge from subconscious loops. When you redesign the loop, you redesign your identity. And when you redesign your identity, you redesign your entire life. You are not stuck because you lack potential. You are stuck because your habits reinforce a version of you that you have outgrown. The moment you interrupt the loop, your future begins to open. Chapter 3. Emotional numbness, the silent consequence of autopilot. There is a moment in many people's lives where they look around and realize they haven't felt anything deeply in a long time. They haven't tasted life fully. They haven't experienced joy with their whole chest, sadness with honesty, excitement with openness, or even discomfort with courage. This is emotional numbness, a quiet, creeping state that develops slowly, until one day it becomes the only thing you know. And the most dangerous part, you can be emotionally numb and still appear completely functional, still productive, still social, still responsible, still smiling. Autopilot living creates this numbness. It disconnects you from yourself until your inner world becomes muted. and your emotional experience becomes flat. Avoiding discomfort creates long-term emotional dullness. The human mind has a simple survival instinct. Avoid pain. And when you avoid discomfort repeatedly, the difficult conversation, the challenging task, the emotional truth, the fear you haven't confronted, you train your nervous system to shut down emotional intensity altogether. Here is the paradox most people never see. When you avoid negative emotions, you also lose access to positive emotions. You cannot selectively numb. When you suppress one feeling, you suppress them all. Avoidance feels like protection, but it slowly steals your ability to feel alive. You don't notice it happening at first. You just feel off, then disconnected, then eventually nothing at all. Autopilot disconnects you from purpose and passion. Autopilot creates emotional numbness because it replaces experience with routine. You stop seeing your life. You simply move through it. You don't wake up with curiosity. You wake up to a script. You don't approach your day with intention. You approach it with habit. You don't listen to your emotions. You silence them because they disrupt the system. Purpose cannot exist in repetition. Passion cannot survive in monotony. Energy cannot thrive in emotional absence. When you stop being present, your inner world shuts down to match your outer life. The autopilot mind is a mind that no longer feels deeply, because feeling requires awareness. An autopilot removes awareness. You stop feeling deeply because deep feeling requires presence. Real emotion happens in the present moment, but autopilot keeps you everywhere except here. You're thinking about the next task, or replaying yesterday, or scrolling past your emotions, or running from discomfort, or distracting yourself from your inner experiences. Presence requires stillness. Stillness requires facing yourself, and facing yourself requires honesty. Most people avoid presence because presence reveals truths they're not ready to confront. The unhappiness they've ignored, the dreams they've abandoned, the relationships they've outgrown, the habits that hurt them, the emotions they've buried. So they stay disconnected, not because they don't want to feel, but because feeling requires courage. Autopilot removes that courage by removing awareness. Emotional awakening requires reconnecting with your inner world. You don't wake up emotionally by accident. You wake up by reconnecting. Reconnecting with what hurt you. Reconnecting with what excites you. Reconnecting with what scares you. Reconnecting with what you want. Reconnecting with what you've been ignoring. This reconnection begins with noticing. Noticing the small tension in your chest. Noticing the heaviness in your breath. Noticing the thoughts you always push away. Noticing the emotions that rise but never get expressed. Feeling returns in whispers before it returns in waves. If you can listen to the whisper, you won't need the wave. Stillness is a gateway back to feeling alive. Stillness is terrifying for people who live on autopilot because silence removes the noise that numbs them. But stillness is where emotional clarity is born. Stillness allows buried emotions to surface. Stillness reveals the truth your distractions hide. Stillness reconnects you with your internal state. Stillness repairs what autopilot broke. In stillness, you hear your inner voice again, not the voice of fear, not the voice of habit, but the voice of truth. That voice is your emotional compass. That voice is your real identity. That voice is the gateway to awakening. Emotional numbness is not who you are. It is a symptom. It is not your personality. It is not your destiny. It is not your identity. It is a response, a defense, a habit, a consequence of living without presence. Emotional numbness doesn't mean you are broken. It means you've been surviving too long. It means you've carried too much alone. It means you've ignored yourself to keep going. It means you've been on autopilot so long that your emotions stop trying to speak to you. But here's the beautiful truth. The moment you start paying attention again, your emotional world begins to wake up. Slowly, gently, naturally, as awareness returns, feeling returns. As feeling returns, clarity returns. As clarity returns, your life begins to shift, because emotional numbness is not the end. It is the beginning of your awakening. Chapter 4. The Psychology of Distraction. How you escape your own mind. Distraction is not random. It is not accidental. It is not just a byproduct of modern life. Distraction is a psychological escape, a doorway your mind runs through when being present becomes too overwhelming. People believe they get distracted because they lack discipline, but distraction has nothing to do with discipline. It has everything to do with avoidance. Distraction is a way of protecting yourself from feelings you don't want to confront, thoughts you don't want to process, truths you don't want to acknowledge, and parts of your identity you don't want to meet. This chapter reveals why distraction feels so automatic, so powerful, and so hard to break, and how autopilot uses it to keep you unconscious. You distract yourself because presence feels overwhelming. Presence demands honesty. It asks you to feel what you've avoided. It forces you to pay attention to your inner world. But most people live with unprocessed emotions, suppressed stress, buried anxiety, repressed desires, unspoken truths, hidden fears. Being fully present would bring all that to the surface. And that feels overwhelming. So the brain reaches for escape, not because you're weak, but because you're overloaded. Distraction becomes the emotional anesthetic that keeps you from feeling too much at once. Modern life conditions your brain to seek escape constantly. Your brain is designed to notice novelty. Anything new, loud, unexpected, or emotionally stimulating. Modern technology knows this, and it exploits it. Every notification, every alert, every buzzing message, every algorithmic recommendation is designed to pull your attention away from yourself. Your life becomes a constant tug of war between your mind and your devices. Your brain never gets silence, never gets space, never gets stillness. And without stillness, you lose access to clarity. Your brain begins to crave distraction, not just out of fear, but out of habit. Autopilot thrives on overstimulation. The more distracted you become, the more autopilot takes over. Because when your mind is overstimulated, it cannot operate consciously. It switches into automatic mode. This is why you scroll without realizing it. Why you binge content without intention. Why you move through routines without awareness. Why your days blur into each other. Autopilot and distraction feed each other. Distraction weakens presence. Lack of presence strengthens autopilot. Autopilot increases unconscious behavior. Unconscious behavior fuels more distraction. You're not losing focus. You're losing engagement with your own life. Why you can't stop distracting yourself? Because distraction is rewarding. Emotionally rewarding. Physiologically rewarding. Neurologically rewarding. Every distraction triggers dopamine, the brain's pleasure and anticipation chemical. Your brain learns. Escape feels good. Escape feels safe. Escape reduces discomfort. Escape rewards me. So every time you feel tension, boredom, anxiety, sadness, or stress, your brain seeks the quickest escape. Scrolling, snacking, checking notifications, watching something, shopping, daydreaming, jumping between tasks, overworking, avoiding responsibility. These distractions work. They numb the discomfort, but they also numb your potential. Breaking distraction habits requires practicing discomfort. You don't break distraction by removing your phone, or blocking websites, or changing apps. Those things help, but the real solution happens internally. To overcome distraction, you must learn how to sit with discomfort, how to observe your emotions without escaping, how to feel instead of numb, how to breathe through the urge to run, how to pause before reacting, how to be present with yourself. Presence is a skill, and discomfort is the training ground. If you can learn to stay for 5 seconds, longer than your discomfort wants, your mind begins to rewire. You weaken the habit. You reclaim the moment. You regain control. Distraction is a symptom of a noisy mind. Your thoughts are loud. Your feelings are loud. Your life is loud. And when everything inside you feels chaotic, your brain seeks relief in anything external. Distraction is not the problem. It is the signal. A signal that something inside you needs attention. A signal that you're overwhelmed. A signal that your inner world is asking for space. A signal that your emotional system needs regulation. When your mind becomes too full, your attention spills outward. Removing noise allows clarity to return. Clarity isn't created. It is uncovered. It is what remains. When mental noise fades, when you turn off autopilot, when you reduce stimulation, when you give your mind permission to breathe, clarity rises naturally. Distraction disappears not because you force it to, but because you no longer need it. And when you stop escaping your mind, you can finally hear it. Your desires, your fears, your truth, your direction, your next step. Distraction hides your inner world. Presence reveals it. And once you can feel your inner world again, you can begin to live consciously. This is how you wake up. This is how you take back control. This is how you stop escaping and start becoming. Chapter 5. The Illusion of I Don't Have Time. I don't have time. It's one of the most common lies people tell themselves. Not because they are dishonest, but because they are unaware. Time is not the problem. Attention is. Intention is. Awareness is. People believe they lack time, but what they truly lack is clarity about what matters and consciousness about where their energy goes. Autopilot convinces you that you're busy, when in reality, you're simply occupied. You fill your days with motion, but not progress, with tasks, but not priorities, with activity, but not alignment. This chapter breaks the illusion, reveals the psychology behind perceived busyness, and helps you reclaim the time you already have. Autopilot creates the feeling of being busy. When you live unconsciously, your days blur into repetitive cycles. You wake up, rush through your routine, handle responsibilities, respond to demands, put out fires, tend to obligations, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted without knowing what you actually accomplished. This is the exhaustion of autopilot, a life filled with tasks but empty of intention. You feel busy because your mind is constantly processing noise, not because you're moving toward anything meaningful. Busyness is not a badge of honor. Busyness is often a symptom of unconscious living. You fill time with low-value actions because they require no thought. Your brain loves easy tasks, not because they're useful, but because they're familiar and emotionally safe. Scrolling, checking messages, rearranging things, browsing online, doing small tasks repeatedly, jumping between distractions, engaging in conversations that go nowhere. These actions create the illusion of productivity, movement without direction. Autopilot directs you toward low-effort behaviors, because low effort requires no presence. But low-effort habits steal the hours you claim you don't have. You aren't out of time. You are out of awareness. Time expands when you become intentional. There is a profound psychological shift that happens. When you begin to live consciously, you stop reacting and start choosing. You stop filling and start prioritizing. You stop surviving the day and start designing it. Time stops slipping. Time becomes spacious. Time becomes manageable. Intentionality does not create more hours. It reveals the hours you've been losing. What felt like overwhelm becomes structure. What felt like chaos becomes clarity. What felt like pressure becomes purpose. Your days stretch because your mind is no longer scattered. You must prioritize, not just schedule. Most people don't have a scheduling problem. They have a prioritization problem. They schedule everything except what matters. They schedule tasks but not goals. They schedule obligations but not growth. They schedule distractions but call them responsibilities. They schedule other people's needs before their own direction. Scheduling organizes your time. Prioritizing transforms it. You don't need a tighter routine. You need a clearer compass. Ask yourself daily, what actually matters today? What moves my life forward? What aligns with my future self? What can I release? What can wait? What am I doing out of habit, not purpose? When you begin choosing instead of reacting, you reclaim hours you didn't know you had. Autopilot tricks you into believing you're out of time. Autopilot creates a mental fog where all tasks feel equally urgent, all demands feel equally important, and all noise feels equally necessary. This fog destroys your ability to differentiate. Movement from progress, urgency from importance, stress from productivity, noise from meaning. Under this fog, time slips away unnoticed. You're not conscious enough to catch it. This is why people say, I don't know where the day went. It didn't go anywhere. You went somewhere without awareness. Controlling your time begins with controlling your attention. Time management is impossible without attention management. Your attention is the real currency of your life. Where it goes, your time goes. Where it goes, your energy goes. Where it goes, your future goes. Every distraction is not just stealing minutes. It is stealing identity. Every unconscious habit does not just waste time. It prolongs stagnation. Every moment of presence, however small, returns power to your life. Ask yourself, who is controlling my attention, me or my impulses? Am I choosing how I live today, or is habit choosing for me? Where's my focus going without my permission? What would my day look like if I design it consciously? When you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your time. And when you reclaim your time, you reclaim your life. You're not short on time. You're short on awareness. The illusion, I don't have time, dissolves the moment you start observing your day with clarity. Time is not the enemy. Distraction is. Autopilot is. Emotional numbness is. Lack of presence is. Fear-based habits are. You have enough time to build the life you want. You just haven't been consciously directing it. When you begin waking up from autopilot, you discover something powerful. You're not too busy. You're not too late. You're not out of time. You just need to take back the minutes that unconscious living has been stealing from you. This chapter marks the turning point, where you stop letting your days repeat themselves and start shaping them with intention. Time belongs to you again. Chapter 6. How your environment programs your mind. Most people believe they are in control of their choices, their habits, their discipline, their behaviors. But the truth is far more subtle and far more powerful. Your environment makes your decisions long before you do. Your surroundings shape your subconscious cues. Your space directs your behaviors automatically. Your digital world controls your attention without asking. Your physical world molds your habits without permission. This isn't weakness. It's neuroscience. Your mind is constantly absorbing signals from the world around you. And those signals silently program your thoughts, emotions, and actions. This chapter reveals how your environment controls your life more than motivation ever could, and how changing your surroundings can awaken your mind faster than any mindset trick. Your environment shapes your choices automatically. Your brain is wired to respond to environmental cues before conscious thought kicks in. See your phone, pick it up. Walk into the kitchen, snack. Sit at your desk, scroll. Lie in bed, overthink. Open your laptop, wander online. Hear a notification, react instantly. You think these are decisions. They're not. They're conditioned responses. Your environment tells your brain what to do, and your brain obeys without questioning. If your surroundings are designed for distraction, you will be distracted. If your surroundings are cluttered, your mind will feel cluttered. If your surroundings lack intention, your life will lack intention. Awareness doesn't free you from environmental influence, but intentional design does. Clutter, noise, and digital overload reinforce autopilot. Your environment doesn't have to shout to influence you. It shapes you through subtle but constant pressure. Clutter increases mental load, even if you don't consciously notice it. Your brain registers every unfinished task, every mess, every item out of place. Mental noise increases. Focus decreases. Stress rises. Autopilot activates. Noise fragments attention. Background conversations, alerts, music, videos. Each one chips away at cognitive clarity. Noise forces your brain into defense mode, making it impossible to enter deep focus. Digital overload hijacks your dopamine system. Notifications, apps, tabs, feeds. Your devices are designed to keep you reactive. When your digital environment is chaotic, your inner environment becomes chaotic too. Your mind cannot thrive in a world designed to distract it. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your environment. Motivation can push you for a moment. Discipline can push you for a while. But environment pushes you continuously. If your environment supports your goals, your success becomes natural. If your environment contradicts your goals, your success becomes exhausting. Want to eat healthier? The food in your kitchen will determine your success, not your willpower. Want to focus better? Your phone placement matters more than your intention. Want to wake up early? Your nighttime environment determines your morning. Want to start reading more? Whether the book is in sight matters more than motivation. Environment sets the default, and humans follow defaults far more than ambitions. Changing your environment shifts behavior effortlessly. One of the biggest secrets of behavior science is this. If you want to change your life, change your surroundings first. It requires far less effort than trying to force discipline. Some examples. Put your phone in another room, you stop checking it. Keep water on your desk, you drink more. Leave a journal open, you write more. Remove junk food, cravings decrease. Place your gym clothes near your bed, you exercise more. Create a dedicated workspace, procrastination decreases. Reduce clutter, mental energy increases. Small environmental shifts lead to massive behavioral changes because they interrupt cues that normally activate autopilot. When you reshape your external world, your internal world follows. Your space must reflect the life you want, not the life you're stuck in. Look around your room, your desk, your home, your digital devices. Do they reflect your vision, your goals, your identity, your potential, your future self? Or do they reflect your past habits, your procrastination, your distractions, your clutter, your stagnation? Your environment should pull you forward, not hold you back. Ask yourself, does my room make me feel awake or drained? Does my workspace bring clarity or confusion? Does my digital world align with the life I want to create? Does my home support my emotional well-being or overwhelm me? Environment is identity made physical. When you change it, you signal to your brain. We are becoming someone new. The mind responds. Designing intentional surroundings sparks cognitive awakening. When you create an environment filled with cues of purpose, your mind begins to shift. When your space is calm, your thoughts become calm. When your space reflects intention, your actions become intentional. Order outside creates order inside. Clarity outside creates clarity inside. Purpose outside awakens purpose inside. This is why changing your environment often leads to sudden bursts of motivation, creative breakthroughs, emotional clarity, and renewed discipline. Your environment whispers to your mind constantly. Make sure those whispers push you toward consciousness, not back into autopilot. Your surroundings shape you, but when you design them intentionally, they shape you into someone you're proud of becoming. This chapter is your wake-up call. Your environment is not passive. It is a psychological force. And when you take control of it, you take control of your life. Chapter 7. Breaking the identity of this is just who I am. One of the most powerful lies the human mind believes is this. This is just who I am. It sounds harmless. It sounds reasonable. It sounds self-aware. But beneath that statement hides a deeper truth. A truth most people never question. You're not describing your identity. You're describing your patterns. And patterns can change. When you repeat a behavior long enough, your brain begins to name it as part of your identity. Not because it is true, but because it is familiar. This chapter exposes how autopilot turns habits into identities, and how reclaiming your inner power begins when you finally understand. You are not your patterns. You are the one who creates them. Autopilot convinces you that your patterns define you. Humans mistake repetition for identity. If you've procrastinated for years, your mind says, "That's just who I am." If you've always avoided conflict, your mind says, "That's just my personality." If you were raised around fear, your mind says, "I'm just an anxious person." If you failed before, your mind says, "I'm not capable." If you've never been disciplined, your mind says, "I'm just not that type." But none of these statements are truths. They are conclusions drawn from patterns. Autopilot is the reason these patterns survive. You repeat them unconsciously, then mistake them for identity. Identity doesn't come from your potential. Identity forms from your repeated behavior. Whatever you do consistently, your brain assumes is you. This is how people stay stuck for years, in a version of themselves that no longer matches who they want to become. Identity is fluid, not fixed. Your identity is not a fixed trait. It is a living system, constantly changing based on your habits, your thoughts, your environment, your actions, your self-talk, your beliefs, your repeated choices. Identity grows or shrinks, depending on what you choose every day. A person becomes confident by acting confident repeatedly, not once, not perfectly, repeatedly. A person becomes disciplined by practicing discipline in small steps. A person becomes courageous by taking tiny actions toward fear. You don't need to feel like someone new before becoming them. You become someone new by behaving like them. Identity follows action, not the other way around. Reinvention begins by questioning your self-story. Every person carries an internal story about who they are. Some of these stories are empowering. I grow through challenges. I am adaptable. I can learn anything. But many are limiting. I'm just not smart enough. I'm too old to change. I always mess things up. I'm bad at relationships. I'm not disciplined. I'm not creative. These stories were created from old wounds, family programming, school experiences, social conditioning, past failures, fear-based beliefs. They are not reflections of your true potential. They are reflections of who you used to be, not who you can become. To transform your life, you must first transform your self-story. Ask yourself, who told me this story? Why do I keep repeating it? What evidence do I have that it's true? Who would I be without this belief? What identity am I holding onto that no longer fits my future? Awareness destroys lies. And the moment you question your identity, the old version of you begins to loosen its grip. You can outgrow any identity built on survival instead of purpose. Many identities were not chosen. They were adopted for survival. If you grew up around chaos, you became hyper-aware. If you grew up around criticism, you became self-protective. If you grew up around instability, you became cautious. If you grew up feeling unseen, you became quiet. If you grew up feeling unsafe, you became compliant, pleasing, or hidden. These were not flaws. They were survival strategies. But survival identities are not meant to be permanent. At some point, you outgrow the version of yourself that was created to endure the past. The question is, will you let that identity continue controlling your life long after the danger is gone? Purpose begins where survival ends. Your next version requires you to release the version of you that was built out of fear. Becoming conscious of identity shifts, empowers transformation. Identity change doesn't happen through a sudden declaration. It happens through daily evidence. Each small action that contradicts your old identity. Build a new one. When the procrastinator takes action, a new identity forms. When the anxious person faces discomfort, a new identity forms. When the people pleaser sets a boundary, a new identity forms. When the avoidant person speaks up, a new identity forms. Identity is rewritten in tiny rebellions against the person you used to be. This is how transformation truly happens, not through one massive moment, but through thousands of small decisions that signal to your brain, we are becoming someone new. You are not who you have been. You are who you decide to be. This is the moment of truth. Your past behavior does not limit your future identity. Your patterns do not define your potential. Your habits do not determine your destiny. You can choose again. You can rewrite your story. You can outgrow your old self. You can rebirth a new identity through action. You can design your future by reshaping your present choices. You are not stuck with who you were. You are responsible for who you become. Once you stop saying, "This is just who I am," and start saying, "This is who I am becoming," your entire life begins to shift. Identity is not a cage. It is a canvas. And now, you finally have the courage and awareness to paint something new. Chapter 8. Reawakening your mind through mindfulness and presence. There's a version of you, clear-minded, awake, grounded, emotionally alive, that has been buried under layers of distraction, habit loops, and unconscious repetition. Mindfulness is how you uncover that version. Presence is how you return to yourself. Mindfulness is not about sitting in silence for hours or becoming someone who never feels overwhelmed. It is the simple, powerful practice of coming back to this moment again and again until the mind remembers how to be awake. Presence interrupts the autopilot state. It breaks unconscious patterns. It dissolves emotional numbness. It reduces mental noise. It reconnects you with your inner world and reintroduces you to the life you've been rushing through. This chapter is the turning point, where you stop sleepwalking through your days and begin waking up to the life happening right in front of you. Presence interrupts automatic patterns. Autopilot thrives on unconsciousness. It needs you to rush, react, repeat, and avoid. But the moment you become present, even for 5 seconds, autopilot loses its control. Presence creates a gap between reaction and choice, between impulse and intention, between emotion and action, between habit and awareness. This tiny gap is where transformation begins. You don't need to be present all day. You just need moments of presence to interrupt deeply rooted patterns. 5 seconds of awareness can change a 5-year habit. That's the power mindfulness holds. Mindfulness increases awareness, control, and emotional clarity. When you return to the present moment, you start to see what's actually happening inside you. Your thoughts, your tension, your impulses, your emotional triggers, your avoidance patterns, your automatic reactions. For the first time, you observe instead of react. You witness instead of drown. You notice instead of numb. This shift gives you control. Mindfulness is not about controlling your thoughts. It's about not letting your thoughts control you. It's not about eliminating emotion. It's about feeling emotion without letting it hijack your behavior. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Awareness becomes clarity. Clarity becomes power. Simple, grounding practices awaken the mind quickly. Mindfulness does not require spiritual rituals or complicated techniques. It begins with grounding, bringing your attention back into your body. Here are simple grounding practices that awaken the mind instantly. 1. The 5-second breath reset. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 2 seconds. Exhale for 6 seconds. This resets your nervous system and pulls you out of autopilot. 2. The name what's real method. Notice one thing you see, one thing you hear, one thing you feel physically, one feeling rising inside you. This reconnects you to the present moment. 3. The pause before the pattern. Before you check your phone, before you react in anger, before you avoid a task. Pause. Breathe. Notice the urge. That tiny pause gives your higher self control. 4. The 60-second stillness break. Sit. Do nothing. Let silence return. 1 minute of stillness feels small, but it rewires your relationship with your inner world. Small practices break large patterns. The more present you are, the more intentional you become. Presence is the foundation of intention. When you're aware, you make conscious choices instead of reactive ones. You stop scrolling unconsciously, eating unconsciously, speaking unconsciously, avoiding unconsciously, working unconsciously, living unconsciously. You start asking, what am I actually doing right now? Why am I doing this? Is this aligned with the life I want? Presence resurrects intention. Intention reshapes behavior. Behavior rebuilds identity. This is why mindfulness is not just a practice. It is a lifestyle shift. It is choosing to wake up instead of moving through life half asleep. Living consciously builds a life you can actually feel. When you become present, you begin to experience life again. Colors look sharper. Food tastes richer. Conversations feel deeper. Nature becomes calming. Your breath becomes grounding. Your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions become more authentic. You stop rushing past your own existence. You stop numbing the moments meant to be lived. You stop abandoning yourself in the middle of your life. Presence makes your life feel real again because you're actually in it. Mindfulness is not about quieting your mind forever. It's about coming home to yourself. Every time you drift away and every time you return, you strengthen the connection between you and the person you're becoming. Presence is the antidote to autopilot. Mindfulness is the reawakening of your inner world. This chapter marks the moment you begin living awake. Chapter 9. Choosing purpose over comfort. There comes a point in your life where comfort stops feeling good. It starts feeling heavy. It starts feeling suffocating. It starts feeling like a cage disguised as a warm blanket. Comfort is easy. Comfort is predictable. Comfort is safe. But comfort is also the enemy of growth. And when you live on autopilot for too long, comfort becomes your default, a silent gravitational pull keeping you at the same level, thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, living the same days on repeat. Purpose, on the other hand, requires something different. Purpose requires intention. Purpose requires awareness. Purpose requires courage, effort, discomfort, and honesty. Purpose asks you to stretch. Comfort asks you to shrink. This chapter is the moment you begin choosing the life you want over the life that's simply easiest to maintain. Autopilot keeps you safe but stagnant. The autopilot brain is built for one thing: survival, not fulfillment, not happiness, not growth. When your mind operates on autopilot, it prioritizes the known over the unknown, the familiar over the meaningful, the predictable over the purposeful. Your brain whispers, stay here. It's easier. It's safer. It's comfortable. But comfort is deceptive. It convinces you that nothing is wrong. Yet, deep down, something feels missing. You're not meant to live the same year over and over and call it a life. Comfort offers safety. Purpose offers expansion. Purpose requires intention, effort, and discomfort. Purpose is never found inside your comfort zone. Purpose is found at the edges of your fear, your uncertainty, your vulnerability. To live with purpose, you must make decisions consciously, face discomfort willingly, challenge your patterns bravely, choose growth consistently, redefine yourself repeatedly. Purpose demands movement. Purpose demands presence. Purpose demands responsibility. Purpose is not a gift. It is a choice you must make every single day. Growth happens only when you choose meaning over ease. Your comfort zone might feel safe, but nothing grows there. You don't gain strength by staying comfortable. You gain strength by doing what scares you. You don't gain clarity by staying still. You gain clarity by taking steps, even shaky ones. You don't discover purpose by waiting for it. You discover purpose by moving toward it. Your comfort zone protects your past. Purpose pulls you into your future. Choosing ease keeps you small. Choosing meaning makes you evolve. Purpose reconnects you with your higher self. There's a version of you, a wiser, stronger, clearer version that you sense but haven't fully lived yet. That version calls you toward growth, toward truth, toward alignment, toward the life you know you're capable of living. Purpose is the bridge between who you are and who you can become. When you begin living with intention, your choices sharpen, your mind clears, your emotions deepen, your relationships become richer, your days feel more meaningful. Your life starts pointing in a direction that feels real. Purpose reconnects you with the part of you that refuses to settle. Comfort feels good. Purpose feels right. Comfort numbs you. Purpose awakens you. Comfort keeps life quiet. Purpose gives life meaning. Comfort avoids challenge. Purpose transforms you through challenge. Comfort is temporary relief. Purpose is long-term fulfillment. Comfort shrinks your world. Purpose expands it. Comfort says, rest here. Purpose says, rise here. The question becomes simple. Which voice will you follow? When you know your why, autopilot loses power. Purpose doesn't eliminate difficulty. It gives difficulty meaning. When you have a why, you endure discomfort more easily. You follow through more consistently. You make decisions more clearly. You break habits more confidently. You resist distractions more naturally. Your why wakes you up. Your why pulls you forward. Your why reminds you that comfort is not the goal. Growth is. A strong purpose overrides autopilot, because autopilot only controls the unconscious mind. Purpose activates the conscious mind, the part of you capable of choosing, directing, creating, becoming. Purpose doesn't arrive. You create it through action. People wait for purpose to appear, as if it will one day reveal itself in a moment of clarity. But purpose is not discovered. Purpose is constructed. It is built through the choices you make, the habits you practice, the courage you show, the responsibilities you accept, the discomforts you face, the risks you take, the values you uphold. Every purposeful action creates a more purposeful life. Purpose grows through movement, not contemplation. The turning point. Choose purpose. Every day, purpose is not a one-time decision. It is a daily commitment. Every morning you wake up, you're given a choice. Will you repeat yesterday, or will you rise into your next level? Will you choose comfort, or will you choose meaning? Will you stay unconscious, or will you live awake? This is the shift. The moment you begin choosing what your future needs, instead of what your comfort wants. You don't need to transform all at once. You don't need to have perfect clarity. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to choose purpose today, and again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Purpose is built through repetition. Chapter 10. Taking Back Control, Designing a Conscious Life. There is a moment in every person's transformation where something shifts. When the fog clears, the numbness breaks, the distractions quiet, and the truth becomes undeniable. You were never meant to live life on autopilot. You were meant to design it, shape it, direct it, create it. Taking back control is not about perfection. It's not about living every moment with flawless discipline. It's not about eliminating all habits, all distractions, or all fears. It is about becoming awake enough to realize you have a choice in every moment, a choice that shapes your identity, your direction, your daily experience, and your entire future. This final chapter is not the end of a book. It is the beginning of a new life, a conscious life. Your mind becomes powerful when you use it intentionally. An unconscious mind reacts. A conscious mind chooses. An unconscious mind follows old patterns. A conscious mind builds new ones. An unconscious mind feels controlled by life. A conscious mind takes responsibility for it. Your mind is not weak. It's simply been idle, running old programs, old fears, old habits, old conditioning. But the moment you begin using your mind intentionally, you activate a level of power you forgot you had. A mind engaged is a mind awakened. A mind awakened is a mind unstoppable. Break your day into intentional choices instead of automated behaviors. A conscious life is not created through massive overnight change. It's created through micro-intentions, small decisions that break old patterns and reinforce new ones. You wake up. Do you scroll automatically, or do you breathe, observe, and begin with presence? You feel stress. Do you escape into distraction, or do you pause long enough to feel it? You face a task. Do you procrastinate out of habit, or take the smallest possible step? You feel fear. Do you retreat, or move 1 inch forward? Small choices accumulate. Small choices shift identity. Small choices build a conscious life. Every intentional action is a vote for the person you want to become. Conscious routines create momentum and identity shifts. Routines are powerful because they eliminate decision fatigue. But unconscious routines lead to stagnation. Conscious routines, however, are identity building. A conscious routine doesn't need to be rigid. It just needs to be intentional. Examples: a morning routine that wakes your mind, an evening routine that calms your nervous system, a work routine that reduces distraction, a self-care routine that reconnects you with your emotions, a learning routine that expands your thinking. These are not chores. These are anchors, moments that ground you in awareness, so your day doesn't slip into autopilot. Your routines are the structure within which your new identity grows. Consistency matters more than intensity. Transformation is not about grand gestures. It's about steady ones. People overestimate intensity and underestimate consistency. Intensity burns fast. Consistency builds forever. 1 day of total discipline won't change your life. 30 days of small, conscious actions will. One burst of motivation won't rewrite your identity. Daily repetition will. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present enough to repeat the small things. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum rewires identity. Identity sustains transformation. The person you want to become is built through repetition, not inspiration. You stop repeating life and start creating it. When you finally take control of your mind, something extraordinary happens. You stop drifting. You stop repeating. You stop surviving. You stop abandoning yourself. And you begin creating. You begin making decisions based on direction, not habit. You begin choosing what aligns with your future, not what comforts your past. You begin living with clarity, not confusion. You begin feeling emotions fully, instead of numbing them. You begin walking into each day as the designer of your life, not the passenger of your patterns. This is the shift from unconscious existence to conscious creation. The new version of you begins now. You do not have to earn the right to change your life. You do not need permission. You do not need certainty. You do not need perfection. You just need awakening, awareness, presence, intention, and you already have all of those. From this moment forward, you are no longer a mind trapped by habit. You are a mind choosing its direction. You are no longer a person shaped by your past. You are a person designing your future. You're no longer living on autopilot. You're living awake. Your life is now in your hands, not your habits. You have stepped into consciousness. You have reclaimed your power. You have begun the life only you can create. This is where control returns. This is where identity shifts. This is where purpose ignites. This is where your new story begins. And starting now, you are not just living. You are choosing. You have spent years on autopilot without realizing it, repeating the same thoughts, repeating the same habits, repeating the same emotions, repeating the same life. But now you see the truth. Autopilot wasn't protecting you. It was controlling you. It kept you numb, distracted, unfocused, and disconnected from your own potential. But the moment you wake up, everything changes. You start making decisions instead of repeating patterns. You start building habits instead of running from them. You start feeling deeply instead of drifting mindlessly. You start living intentionally instead of accidentally. Your life isn't meant to be a loop. It's meant to be a creation, a conscious creation. The more awake you become, the more powerful you become. This is your moment to take control, to stop drifting, to stop repeating, to stop sleepwalking through your potential. Wake up your mind and watch your entire life transform.